Good morning. Welcome back, everyone. We hope you've been enjoying the program to date. Lots of activity yesterday, and we will continue with the program later on today after the session and hope that you all will be participating. So today, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about reshaping the commercial drone ecosystem and how together we can take the necessary steps towards transforming this industry to even greater heights. Whether it's establishing industry best practices across verticals, developing new innovative solutions to further support the ecosystem, or even driving policymakers to create and sustain the necessary regulations that we need, we all have a role to play, and we all have work to do towards the future development of this industry. And these are just some of the topics that we'll be covering throughout the course of the session, as well as the panels later on this afternoon. At DJI, we understand and are passionate about the value that drone technology brings to all corners of the world. For instance, earlier this year on the African continent, we witnessed how wildlife conservationists, like the Kenya-based Mara Elephant Project, are using drones in their operations to manage human-elephant conflict and preserve elephants in the wild. The staff at the Mara Elephant Project are tasked with a very difficult challenge. It's estimated that over 38,000 elephants are killed each year for their ivory. That's roughly one elephant every 15 minutes. One tusk from an adult elephant can easily weigh over 40 kilograms, with elephant ivory selling for up to $3,000 per kilogram on the open market. These animals are walking gold mines for poachers. The income generated from killing elephants is not just lucrative for the individuals, but also the local militias and terrorist groups who use the income to fund deadly and illegal activities. Of all the available tools that the Mara Elephant Project deploys, one tool that they've found to be very effective and practical is the aerial drone, and for good reason. Actually, we have a video to show you.
I've been working closely with the Mara Elephant Project since 2014 to further the use of drones in the fight against poaching and mitigating human-elephant conflict, using DJI's Matrice and Mavic series for a variety of missions that both stop poachers and guide elephants to safer land. We can locate poachers from a distance during the day, which is far easier now with 30 times zoom with the C30 camera, and at night as well with the XT2 thermal camera. Mark also came up with the idea of using drones to herd elephants like someone might herd sheep. When an elephant hears a drone, it sounds like a swarm of bees, and they'll change course to avoid that sound. This is incredibly helpful when we see a pack of elephants moving towards a village or poaching a hot zone.
Since the organization began, we've arrested over 300 poachers and seized over 1,000 kilograms of ivory. We've also reduced the percentage of illegally killed elephants from 83% to 44%, meaning elephants are more likely to live out their lives naturally in the wild. Elephants are considered a landscape species. This means that they require large, diverse areas to live and have a significant impact on the ecosystem around them. By protecting the elephants, we're also protecting the greater Mara ecosystem. Drones play a significant role in our work.
Sure. Look, it's through applications like these where we're just starting to see how valuable the drone technology is and can be on a going forward basis. Whether it's saving lives in the United States or protecting wildlife in Africa, drones are truly revolutionizing the way we work, live, and view the world. None of these developments would be possible were it not for the people on the ground who see the value and benefit of this technology and also provide continuous improvement and embrace this technology throughout the work that they do on a daily basis. Our efforts to strengthen the UAV adoption and accessibility don't stop there. We're also cognizant of the role and value that our partners are bringing to the table and adding greater value to the DJI drone platform. From the likes of FLIR, whom we've partnered with since 2015 to the likes of Microsoft and American Petroleum Institute, whom you'll hear from later today, as well as many others, our partnerships remain critical and core to the work and the success that DJI is having here in the United States and throughout the world. Because of this, we are committed to supporting this ecosystem in a variety of different ways, and later today we'll get into more details as to how that is exactly working out and what else is in the pipeline to enhance and really grow those partnerships and really grow the industry. But for now, I'd like to shift back and focus our attention back on an issue that we discussed yesterday, and that really is very important to us as an industry, and I think it's really critical for us to address and encompasses all stakeholders in the industry, and that's data security, data management for drone technology. Yesterday I touched on this topic briefly, but because this topic is so core and critical to what needs to happen within the industry, we've invited a couple of subject matter experts to come and join us this morning and really share and hear from their perspectives and share their thoughts on what more needs to be done. So with that, I'd like to invite Darrell West, Vice President of the Governance Programs at the Brookings Institution, and Troy Gonzalez, Chief Engineer at Booz Allen Hamilton. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you both for being here today. Appreciate it. So just to put things in perspective, as we started to discuss yesterday, there is a growing need to address the issue of data management, data security, and the fact that we do need to start developing industry protocols and start framing the issue and really working towards a path of industry standards that really addresses the issues that are of concern. So Darrell has been working on a number of these issues from the governance program and really looking at how technology, especially evolving technologies, are shaping the world that we live in, and then what policies or regulations are needed. And then Troy has been working as part of Booz Allen, really helping and collaborating with government agencies, federal, state, and local, to address these issues of emerging technologies and how to properly deploy and embrace these technologies in a more proactive manner. So they have hands-on, they're boots on the ground, as our fellow firemen would say, that we heard from yesterday. But you both are boots on the ground and looking at the issues from a different perspective. So thank you for joining us today. So Troy, first question to you.
Sure.
Now, as you're seeing the agencies at the federal and even at the state and local level start to look at the technology of drone technology, as we know there are a number of issues that they have to work through. What is your perspective on how are the agencies embracing deployment of the technology, looking at the technology, and what's their thinking, and how are you helping them think through these issues?
Yeah, it's fun, and specifically with data security, when you start to think of that, I think that's one of their biggest challenges. And it's shifting from agency to agency, from civil to defense. I think you start to see the varying degrees of complexity that they're dealing with. But predictability, I think, is key in what they're really trying to do. And because predictability reduces risk, reduces cost, reduces delays, and all the things that they do. Predictability also allows, I think, drone service providers and manufacturers like you to take risk and invest in technology, and allows you to build out new platforms, new configurations, new sensors, new software. And without that predictability, it's very difficult, right? And without that predictability, what happens is the product just becomes stagnant, suboptimized, and the quality and the performance shows up in the work that we do. And the work that we do shows up in the missions of our clients and the things that we're trying to do. So predictability is very important, and understanding predictability really comes down to understanding those variances across civil agencies and defense agencies and state and local. And even within defense, you see multiple variations of requirements, whether you're on base or off base. And I think the real challenge there is maintaining those security protocols as a consultant and working with these drone providers. We work with Precision Hawk. Trying to maintain that variation is key, whether it's the platform that you have to use, or whether it's the air-gapped computer that you have to have, or the disconnected video link on your controller. Can you imagine flying like that? That's always really fun, and those are the things that they have to deal with. So it's a lengthy process usually. I mean, we have to get waivers from the Office of Secretary of Defense if we want to fly on an installation. Before that, even before we do anything, we have to have a cyber assessment on the platforms and the things that we're doing. So it's not predictable at times because things are changing constantly, and it's a lengthy process. So there's some difficulty there. So those are the things that we're working very closely with our clients.
But you're still seeing demand, and
Oh, yeah.
there's great expectations of what this emerging technology can do.
Even with the changes, last year we were right in the middle of a project, and all of these requirements hit. Everybody bunkered down, that including our clients, and worked very closely to make sure that the project was a success. So that's amazing to see how people can do that. But I've also seen the demand signal in use for drones. It's gone up almost 600% in some of the areas that we've been.
600%, significant. Darrell, knowing that we're talking about an emerging technology, and knowing the work that you've done over the last years in terms of helping a number of industries and helping them think through how to address these security data management issues, are there lessons to be learned by the drone industry community based upon the work and what you've seen other industries do in terms of how they embrace and address these technology data security issues?
I think looking at other technologies is instructive, just in terms of seeing how they have managed some of these privacy and security issues, because every new technology faces a number of challenges, and people have worries about how they actually are going to operate. And so, for example, you look at the various generations of mobile technology. Oftentimes there were companies that had different technical specifications, and then it was hard for the industry as a whole to develop. And so what industries did in those situations was to come together and use technical standard setting to basically address people's concerns and create some of the predictability that Troy has been talking about. And there are a couple of organizations that have done great work in this area. The IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. It's a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1884 when electricity was coming on the scene, and there were lots of questions about that as a new technology. And so the experts got together and kind of figured out voltage issues and the technical specs on various types of electrical equipment. And then at the government level, there's an organization called NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, which basically does a lot of critical infrastructure things. So they work on the power grid, on robotics, on nanotechnology, and so on. But they try and come up with agreed upon technical standards that address various concerns. So I think that is a good model for other new technologies that are coming on the scene today.
Excellent. So at DJI, as all of you know in the audience, we're practical. We always like to understand what's the path forward and how do we engineer ourselves into a situation that we're addressing and sort of working through these issues. So Troy, from your perspective, what's the path forward for the industry collectively to work with the agencies, public safety, to address their concerns, and how do we instill greater confidence and at the same time address the issues that they're concerned with from a network perspective?
It's fun, and it's a lot of hard work, and I think what's really interesting is I've really seen a lot of our clients dig in, and that's exciting to see. So I think the most difficult thing that we need to do is we need to work with our clients and industry, all of us, right? Work together very closely with the regulators, and we're designing out what we're going to do for our specific industry. I don't think it's fair to say that it can be across all industries. That's going to be very difficult, but we need to start thinking about the data architecture that we're putting together, the data collection protocols, which is what we're all here to do, the drones, and everything that we're doing. And now a lot of the AI applications and the analysis and reporting that you're doing and the decision making, all of that needs to come together and needs to be pulled together in one area. And the key there is really, build right now for what you currently understand are the standards, but make sure that you're designing and planning for flexibility and scale. And I think scale is something people forget about. A lot of our clients start with one drone, they end up with 400. Right? And so nobody's thinking about that scale when you talk about, the data, the information, the fleet, all the things that they're doing. So we'd like to start with cyber first. I think that's important. It is so difficult to put cyber in at the end of anything that you're doing. So cyber first always, and building a data architecture that has that ability to scale, that it has that ability to ingest huge amounts of data and at a very high velocity, because that's what we're going to need in the future. And then making sure that you have a drone service provider that has that flexibility and that ability to scale, and has those right platforms to do the things that you have to do. And then it's always really difficult, but you have to keep safety always in mind, but you're really kind of balancing that with cost considerations. And so the way that I would kind of look at it is, start with the standards, measure against those, and then make those adjustments and relax as you've learned.
As you've learned. That sounds very good guidance. So things that we need to do as a collective.
From experience.
From experience, sure. Darrell, from your perspective, from a governance model perspective, what's the path forward? We've just heard from Troy from a practical perspective of how the agencies or critical infrastructure entities are looking at these issues. From a governance model, sort of stepping back, what is your guidance and what do you see should be some of the steps that we should be taking collectively as an industry?
Well, we know that the public is concerned about privacy, security, and the impact of new technologies on human safety. So those are things that everyone has to address. And the key thing is really getting the governance piece right, thinking about what are the appropriate policies and regulations that will reassure the public, that will give us the benefits we want while also mitigating possible risks. And we're seeing a lot of interest at the local, state, and federal levels in these new technologies. And so at the local level, police and fire are engaging with UAS. At the state level, there are a number of state departments of transportation that are active in this area. At the federal level, the Department of Interior has been a big innovator, and then the FAA is charged with kind of regulating things that go into the sky. So figuring out what are the right policies from each of those levels. We see lots of examples. California just passed a new privacy law that gives people more control over their personal information. There's a question in terms of how long data should be retained. That's a policy issue that can be addressed, so that's a way to deal with that particular concern. On government procurement, kind of coming up with consistent standards so that we make sure whatever technologies the federal government is purchasing are safe and reliable. And so I think those are all areas where there's a path forward, but it basically involves industry engaging with the relevant government regulators.
So I think we've just heard it again. It's industry engaging amongst ourselves, collaborating with our government and policymakers and regulators to really arrive, and key stakeholders, to arrive at a solution that's really the path forward for us collectively. So I think we've heard the message again, as we heard yesterday. You've all reinforced it, so thank you for both of you for coming and sharing your perspective and thoughts. But look, what remains, a lot of work needs to be done over the next few months, next few quarters on a go-forward basis. But the issue here is to collaborate and work across the work that you all are doing in addressing these issues head on. So with that, Darrell and Troy, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to continuing working with you. Thank you, Darrell. With that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jan Gasparik, to continue with the program. Jan.